Hello YouTube, this is Lee Walser, the Mighty Paladin, welcoming you to Action and Adventure. Now, Action and Adventure is a role-playing game that I have recently finished creating. For those of you who don't know what a role-playing game is, I'll briefly say it's like Dungeons and Dragons. You've probably heard of it. It's the most famous of all the role-playing games. A group of players will make characters of various sorts. The game system lets you pick different abilities. Another player, called the Game Master, will create an adventure for you all to use your abilities to resolve. That's basically how they go. The players and the game master talk to each other, and they describe their actions, and you roll dice to determine the outcome of uncertain actions. Like if I attack you, I roll dice to hit, that kind of thing. For those of you who are familiar with role-playing games, the first question you're all going to come up with is, why do we need another one? There are literally hundreds of role-playing game systems out there. Why did I even bother making a new one? It comes down to one simple thing. I'm math phobic, a problem that's gotten worse in recent years. I can do math, but even very simple math causes my brain to freeze up momentarily. This can really slow a game down when I'm the game master, so my goal was to make a game with as little math as possible. That's why I wanted to get rid of a lot of things that other games use as cornerstones, things like levels and ability scores and classes and a bunch of stacking bonuses and penalties of varying sizes. In short, what I was trying to do was make a game that I myself would be able to play and do it without it taking forever. And for the players, I wanted their challenge to come from the adventure, not the rules. Of course, there are already some simple games out there, but most of them are either not very satisfying because they're not complete enough, or they're built around a particular setting or a novelty game mechanic that limits how useful they can be for the worlds that I've created for my own playing. I wanted a universal game that could work with minimal adaptation in any setting. Basically a much simpler version of GURPS or D20. Both of those are good games, and I could recommend them to anyone, but I can't play them myself because of my math phobia. I mean, I could play them, but I can't GM them. That means Game Master. For those of you who don't know, I'll be saying GM from now on. Since this is a simple game, it's a good one to use if you're just starting to learn, or if you're trying to get your friends into gaming. And since it's complete and there are going to be a lot of resources available for it, it can meet your needs for a long time. I've already alluded a little bit to what makes this game different, but I haven't mentioned the fact that in making something that I was able to play, I also created a revolution in gaming. The things that I had to do away with are things that have been cornerstones of gaming for a long time, most of them introduced in Dungeons and Dragons and used by most other games since then. I don't use races, I don't use classes, I don't use levels, I don't use ability scores, I don't use points to build your character, and I don't use experience points to advance your character in levels. Everything is different. But it's different in a way that's done to make it better, not just for the sake of being different. I set out trying to make something that would work, not something that would make everybody say, oh my gosh, this is so freaking different, but I ended up being able to do both. I started out by trying to make a superhero game. That, it turns out, is the best way to go about making a universal role-playing system, because superheroes are the most diverse group of characters that exist. Among them you can find barbarians, wizards, mutants, aliens, robots. Anything you can think of has been a superhero at some point. And a lot of characters combine all these different elements into something that wouldn't fit in very easily into most games. The universal systems that are out there for the most part, started out with swords and sorcery, which it is the most popular thing, so they were hoping to do something that would sell real well, and I can understand that. And then they tacked on superheroes later. But because superheroes are kind of above and beyond most other genres, it tended to not work. I went about it differently. My inspiration was the head-to-head fighting games of the 90s. And in those, you would see matchups like Superman versus Batman, or various Capcom characters versus various Marvel characters. You'd see a martial artist versus a wizard, like in World Heroes. Rasputin was the wizard, and most of the other people were martial artists, but Brocken was a robot. So, you see, they had the type of diversity I was going for, and all the characters compete on even ground, because they're all made with the system in mind, rather than trying to make them be exactly like they are in their source material. No, Superman's not going to be just like he is in the comic books, but he's going to be recognizable. And the differences are going to be subtle enough that I don't think it will bother you. I mean, if it bothers you that Bruce Lee has a chance of beating up Superman, then yes, it'll bother you. But if you would actually like to see that kind of fight because Bruce Lee is the best martial artist and Superman is the best superhero, and you'd love to see them go head to head and have an even chance of either one winning, then this is going to be a game you'll really enjoy. Beyond the core system, though, there's a lot more. I've already created a book of characters and creatures for the game. It's equivalent to the Monster Manual from Dungeons & Dragons. It's got a lot of characters and creatures in it. It presents my own version of a lot of dragons and fairies and robots and aliens and a lot more. I think that you'll enjoy that sort of thing, but there's even more to come. That's right, all I've got so far is those two books, the core rule book and the monster book, Creatures and Characters, but I do have some other things in the plan, including an entire superhero universe, some material about historic settings, a Arthurian game setting, and a Viking game setting, and a detailed description of a martial arts world are all already in the works and will be released in the coming months, and maybe it'll take a year or two to get it all out, but it will all be out there. If you are excited about this game, then leave a comment. Let me know what kinds of things you'd like to see available for the game. Of course, you can check out the game itself at lulu.com if you want it in print, or if you would prefer an ebook, you can get it at Drive-Thru RPG. I would like to put links to both of those in the comments. Another thing that I should mention is that I, the Mighty Paladin, am the mascot of the game. My picture is all over it, so if you're a fan of mine, you will love this. Also, I'd like to mention that in upcoming months, now that I'm no longer going to be spending quite as much time working on this game, I will have some free time to start working on some Mighty Paladin cartoons, so you'll get to see some of my adventures. Anyway, this is the Mighty Paladin reminding you all that
you can be a hero.